Now is the time. A time you'll look back on. A time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time. This moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome. Take over. The time is now.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Not too bad.
All good, mate. All good.
Good. Not so bad. A bit of a mental day. I'm sure everyone was glued to that World Cup. What a World Cup! I think we should just go straight into it, lads, and let's get down to business and bring the boys on. Here is Paul, and here is Alex.
Hey,
how's it going?
Evening, boys.
Good.
Evening.
All good. Cut out the pleasantries. Just hope everybody's good. Let's get straight into it, lads. The World Cup final. What an amazing game. And of course, Argentina claimed it. They made hard work of it in the end. And great to see Messi lifting the trophy. And is he going to retire now? I presume he is. From Argentina, but
well, they spoiled it, haven't they? Putting him in a freaking dressing gown to lift the trophy.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was what was going on there. He wasn't long about taking it off as well when he got down the pitch again. But did you enjoy the game? Pete, we'll go to you first.
Great game. Best for me, probably the best World Cup I've ever seen. In my opinion, I think the first one I properly watched was 94 onwards. So some may say some of the 1990, some say it's one of the best and beyond that. But one of the best World Cups I've watched, the best World Cup final I think I've ever seen. It had everything, just quality football, moments of kind of twists and turns, magic. With the penalty shootout, it kind of throws everything up in the air. So a really, really fantastic game. And, you could argue that either team deserved to win the game. So you can't argue that Argentina didn't deserve it. They've had a great tournament after losing their first game against Saudi Arabia, let's not forget.
Yeah.
They deserve to win it. They've got some tremendous players. Some really, really good players that a lot of teams are going to be looking at. So it's going to be very, very interesting what happens in the next 6 to 12 months with some of those Argentine gems.
Yeah, no, agree, Pete. Alex, go to you next. Did you have your stats head on looking at this game tonight?
Well, I was looking at it for different reasons. I thought Marcus Thuram, who came on, was exceptional. Obviously, that might have increased his price somewhat. It was the substitutions that made the difference for France. Although, to be fair, it makes me feel a little bit more justified in saying we should have performed better against France, England v France, because I think they were very a little bit tame in the midfield and in the defensive shape. As was shown, to be fair, they just required an absolute gigantic effort from Mbappe and from their attacking substitutions to get into the game. I think I don't think they're quite as good as everybody seems to think. They are in an attacking sense, of course, they're phenomenal. But I think that defensive line is not quite as good as everybody seems to think it is. Lloris seems to switch it on to do a world-class save, and then it will make a horrendous error from 1 minute to the next. It's bizarre. Yeah. But it made for an entertaining game because Argentina aren't particularly great at the back. They're valiant, but it made for a really exciting game. So probably for a very good final. It would have been, had it been sort of a Croatia versus somebody else final, it might have been a boring final. So no, it was good to watch. It was very fun.
Yeah, I thought once it went to penalties, look, Martinez is so strong, stopper from penalties. But Paul, did you think it was all over there with 10 minutes to go in the 90?
Yeah, I couldn't see France getting back into it. I thought Argentina offered a lot more. First half, I don't know what was the matter. I mean, apparently the French squad have had a bug going around, so that maybe they were a bit lethargic. I couldn't see them getting into the game, and then they got the penalty, and then for the rest of the actual 90-plus injury time, I thought they were going to win it. They were hungrier. Certainly, Mbappe decided to turn up after that, and scored a wonderful equaliser. Fantastic technique, but I thought Argentina, deserved it. Like Pete said, I think they've had a very good tournament apart from the first game. It was a bit of a wake-up call for them that they weren't going to stroll through the World Cup. And, Messi turned it on when he needed to turn it on. But one guy stood out for me a mile for Argentina throughout the tournament, and that's McAllister from Brighton. I think he's a fabulous player. And I think he could be the next spearhead for Argentina because he's a good tackler. He gets stuck in, but he's also very good with the ball, good passer, can attack. I was really, really, really impressed with him. And De Paul, I think on the right-hand side, he's impressed me throughout the World Cup as well. So overall, I think, it's a lottery going into a shootout, but Martinez has got such an incredible reputation for penalty kicks. It's he plays mind games, doesn't he? He got booked today during the penalty kicks.
Rightly so. He picked it up, wandered off, and then threw it out the way.
Listen, it did the trick, didn't he? I mean, when he threw the ball away, he missed that penalty. And I think, he just sets a little bit of doubt in the minds. Whether you call it gamesmanship or what, I don't know, but it worked.
The only downside to that is we're going to have to listen to Aston Villa fans give it that now.
Oh, well, that Villa watch has already been making his, mouth go with his fake, his little sort of bum fluff on his cheek. Let's not get into that. But I do think overall, Argentina probably were the best team in the World Cup. But like Alex said, it's frustrating that we didn't beat the French because I think we would have given a lot more had we made the final. If it had been if we'd have been in the final or played Argentina, would we have played them in the semi or the final? I'm not sure.
Well, we would have had to have played Morocco as well. So
yeah. So, but France, I think, will be frustrated that they didn't offer more through the first 80 minutes. But it is what it is. I mean, they've won it. So
I think it's worth reminding people that for those who are really sad for Mbappe, he's already won one. So half of that squad have already got a World Cup medal.
Well, it's not a bad record to have, is it?
It's not that sad.
He's won one and he's got a hat-trick in another one. And he's, 23 years old. It's phenomenal.
He's got the golden boot.
Yeah.
Did anybody see Shearer's scouting he did in the BBC commentary when Enzo Fernandez went up to pick his Young Player Award? He was like, "Well, he said something like, "Oh, well, we've got time for the Bournemouth game on Tuesday night." He said something like that.
Gary Lineker said Gary Lineker said he'd look nice in black and white, Alan, and that's where Shearer got his speak in. Then, Chris. What were you watching the game? And apart from Mbappe and Messi, who are you taking?
I think Paul's spot on. I thought McAllister was outstanding. And he's had in general, he's had a really, really good World Cup. But as you lads have already said, I was just really disappointed with France in the first 70, 80 minutes. I thought they turned it on, and I was watching it with my lads, and I said to him, that's the thing with France. They've got such quality up front. They're always capable, of getting back into a game. So even at 2-0 on 79 minutes, I still didn't feel like it was over. What I did found interesting was I expected, when I saw Otamendi starting with Romero, I thought I can see why, the Argentina coach has chosen to drop Lisandro Martinez, because obviously he's up against Giroud, who's a big, tall, strong, really good in the air player. And I thought I can see why he's dropped Martinez. But I thought that he would have brought Martinez off for Otamendi when Giroud went off. because I thought it's a different. He had a different player to deal with because obviously Mbappe moved to the middle, but he didn't make that sub, and that surprised me a little bit. And then obviously when Otamendi gave away the penalty, I thought, well,
Does anybody else think he's a liability for Argentina, Otamendi? Because he's so late into tackles.
He's reckless.
He's very clumsy. Yeah.
Just for Argentina.
It's worth it listening to all the Man United fans seething that he's on the bench. So it's fine.
Well, good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but no, really good game. Really enjoyed it. Probably one of the commentators said like probably the best game he's ever seen, and like it's definitely up there. It was end to end. It had everything. But I think part of me does think I'm pleased that Messi won it because that was the last thing that he really needed in terms of winning trophies. So for him to win a World Cup was great. It was great to see. Probably one of those things we'll look back on 20, 30 years and go, wow, remember watching that. So no, it was good for the spectators, but obviously as neutrals, there wasn't really, I wasn't fussed really whether France won it or Argentina won it.
No, and you mentioned my story is that the whole World Cup was a neutral free zone for me because Ireland weren't anywhere near it, and there'll be a long time before they get into a World Cup. But I was watching the game with my little boy who's 5, so I was kind of using the World Cup to teach him about football. But he did a little draw with his cousins at the last weekend, and he got Argentina, and so he was glued to the match, and he was 2-0 up. He was laughing, and then as France started scoring goals, and the tears came, and then so it was drama all the way through the game. But I was like, no, Martinez is going to save this. The Argentina keeper is good. He's going to save. So yeah, lucky enough. He'd still be crying now, I'd say, if France had won. But yeah, interesting World Cup. That is the World Cup, lads. It's over. Back to business. Back to the real. Back to reality, and back to Newcastle. And we're all delighted about that. Before we talk maybe about the game yesterday, we said we'd go straight in with the member prize draw. So I think we should go with that because we promised people that was going to be done. So we've got 87 people in the draw. That includes us, but we can't win. So if we get picked out, we'll spin the wheel again. So it's always fun. Right. So up for grabs is a TV and 2 Google speakers. So this prize I know, we're shocked too. But yeah, thanks to Russ from the Radiator Shed and the Install Works for donating the prize. And you'll see us there on the back of his van and the side of his van is there as well. But so let's get the wheel up, and I'll hand over to you then, Chris, to talk us through what we're going to do.
Yeah, so we've got 3 prizes to give away, as you say. All of our members there are in the spinny wheel. So I think we're best going with the speakers first. So we can do the 2 speakers and then the grand prize at the end. Are we deciding, Daz, that there's got to be 3 separate winners? So we're going to do that, do you think?
Yeah.
I think that's probably fair, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so see, everyone is in the draw, 87 members, and yeah, it's just it sometimes can be difficult to try and track people down from their YouTube username, but we'll give it a go. So
we will.
This is for the first speaker, is it, Chris?
Yes, it is. And what I will say is, obviously, we will contact everyone directly. I will attempt to approach people, but obviously, if I can't contact you, please, obviously, do get in touch with me. But yeah. So this first draw, Daz, is for one of the Google speakers. I love the spinny wheel.
Go.
Here we go.
It's working. The main thing.
Good. It's a good start. Ooh.
Steve Parker.
Yes.
And you know what the funny thing about Steve Parker is that I think Steve Parker is related to the guy that works with Russ. Who's his brother. So Steve Parker came on and joined us on a Loaded Cube, and he is a brother of Simon Parker, who runs the website for us. But coincidence. So Steve gets it. If it's the same guy I'm thinking of, that Steve gets one of the Google speakers.
Well done, Steve. Nice, easy delivery for us as well, which I'm sure he'll be happy with.
I think if I click walk, blank, it removes Steve then from the wheel. So
Okay. This is for the second pair of Google speakers.
here we go.
It's tense. Oh no! No, Rich.
No, Rich, you're not getting
Sorry,
it.
Rich.
You're not getting it.
No.
Oh,
We go
poor
again.
Rich.
Let's go again.
It had to be one of us, didn't
Be
it?
unbelievable if it lands on one of you again.
Who's this?
Chris Shield.
Chris
Actually,
Shields.
Chris's concert.
Oh really?
Yeah. He said this is not a fix. This is as you can see.
Don't think I know.
I think that's Chris Shield. Yeah, from concert. But yeah. Now, Chris, back to you. This is the big one.
Chris. Congratulations, Chris.
Chris.
Yes. So, this one is for the TV. So, best of luck to everyone in the draw. Hey, I can see Buster's in the draw. Bet Buster will be hoping he wins.
I think we have to go again if we can land on us.
We will.
So
we
yeah,
will.
best of luck at everyone. 43-inch smart TV. Here we go.
Here we go.
Carl.
It's Carl. It's Carl. No way.
Carl Thompson, who also has
Carl.
joined us on Loaded Cube in the past. Congratulations, Carl. So that's amazing.
You're either really, really good with all our members, and it seems like you know them all personally, or
Yeah.
it's just a pure coincidence. But no, Carl, cracking lad, absolutely cracking lad. I've met Carl. I've met Carl twice actually.
I haven't met Carl.
You haven't. I met him twice. Yeah. Oh, no, made up for Carl. Fantastic.
And actually, what makes it even better, I suppose, is Carl is Newcastle based, so he'll be able to either collect that TV from Russ, or Russ will be able to deliver it. So that will be handy. So he should be able to get it for Christmas. So that is the end of the draw. So
Well done.
Well done.
congratulations to all our winners.
Yeah. So we've got Steve Parker, who's won the speakers, Chris Shields, who's won the speakers, and our very own Carl Thompson, who's won the 43-inch TV. So well done, Carl.
And Richie, you get nothing like the rest of them.
Yeah. Sorry, Rich. Yeah.
All right, let's get on with it. How about we go to the game for yesterday? Let's talk about that.
Yes.
Of course, it was streamed live from the Newcastle website. Here's the team. Lined out. There's a few missing. Darlow, Karius, Byrne, obviously Dummett injured, Kraft injured, Lewis, Ankio, Richie, Shar, Almiron, Anderson, Joe Linton, Fraser, Bruno, Isak, and Wilson. So, and the reason for a lot of those, not all of them, was because there was a game played kind of behind the doors training game the day before or something like that. So that kind of dictated who was going to play. But what did you make of the team, lads? Or Anthony, about the game? Pete, we'll go to you first. Thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a good run out, because that's what it was for me. It was just a good run out. It's a run out that they needed at St James's Park to feel the grass, to feel the atmosphere again, after a month, to get themselves back into the swing of things at home, ready for what's going to be another big game on Tuesday. I thought it was a good game. I thought Rayo weren't great, but I think at times we made them not very good because of the way in which we played, the way in which we pressed the ball. And being honest, I was always comfortable with us winning the game. And I was always comfortable with that. I was always of the mindset in this friendly game is that I was just glad to watch Newcastle again, first and foremost. And secondly, I wanted this to win, and we won. So I wasn't really bothered. We could have been 5-6-0 up at half time if certain moves had come off, certain good bits of football come together, but it didn't. And I wasn't really too bothered about that. But we won. We keep the good momentum going. And look, for me, none of it really matters until Tuesday night.
Yeah, exactly, Pete. Paul, we'll go to you next. Thoughts on the game? You guys were doing a watch along for. Were you?
Yeah, I did a watch along on it. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, like Pete said, Rayo were very, very poor, but I thought we didn't allow them to play most of the time. I think they were very surprised as soon as they got the ball. You know, there was 2 or 3 of our guys just around them all the time, and they didn't have time on the ball. And I think for a friendly, it was quite competitive. Certainly, Vallecano put some challenges in. That was a little sort of bit iffy from time to time, but they looked all right. I think some passes went awry, some were a bit. But to be honest, it was a good performance, and I think we should be quite excited by the fact that they still look like the momentum's there, and the World Cup break hasn't really interfered with that. As you know, some of the passing was fantastic, and a lot of the starting 11 didn't play yesterday, so it's very exciting for me because I think Eddie's still got them buzzing. I still think that the drive and determination is there. Sean Longstaff seems to improve every single game we see him now. So there's real competition in the midfield as well. It's not a case of everybody's guaranteed a start all of a sudden. So, I mean, Chris Wood even made a few nice flicks in the first half and set us away down the right-hand side. That's pretty much all he did, but he did something of a positive note. So yeah, it was one of those games that we needed just to prepare for Tuesday night, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's the show I watched last night. I was watching yourself, Alex, and Billy on your transfer show, and you did start talking about the game first, and I was surprised. You did actually criticize Chris Wood a lot, and I was like, you change of attitude here towards Chris Wood. But look, he did brilliant at taking penalties, absolutely lethal at penalties, but yeah, he doesn't offer much more. But look, he will be our third choice in time. Alex, thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you there about Chris Wood. He wasn't pressing from the front like he did in that previous game. It was just a lot of dropping deep, which resulted in a few nice flicks, as Paul said. But I want him in the box. I want him making runs because we've got a lot of Willock and Maxi, and even Murphy had a poor game because there wasn't that additional runner that's meant to be there. That's normally Wilson dragging players. It just didn't happen. So, but beyond that, I was really disappointed with Vallecano. I mean, we weren't playing our strongest team. We were missing most of our big hitters in Bruno and Joe Linton and Wilson. So we're missing most of our big hitters, and Vallecano were woefully poor, really poor for a team that are 8th in the league, beat Madrid. Real Madrid, I've got to say that. They were so poor. But we, as Pete said earlier, we pressed them well and essentially made it so they couldn't play their normal game, but they were very, very poor. I can't see us playing them again in a friendly. I think we'd have to try and we want a bit more of a test to try and get ready for a game. I know it's only Bournemouth in the cup, but Bournemouth are in the Premier League. They're not a poor side. We didn't beat them in our game a few months ago, so it was okay. I think Longstaff was my biggest was the biggest positive from that game. I think it's nice to see some consistency from him. We mentioned a few times last night, Billy especially, that he looks a lot bigger. There are a few times where I saw him and I had to double take. Is that, that's Longstaff on the ball? Oh my God, because he just looked a bit, he got a bit more about him for some reason. We said back in the summer about he'd got some really good pressing stats. He's got this contract. Is this gonna work? Looks like it's working absolutely fine. If he can keep putting in these kinds of performances, then he's more than welcome to stay around for the next few years and contribute, because that was decent. It was really good. We got on the score sheet again, so.
No, and it is great to see them come good, like the likes of Longstaff. I remember your one of your comments. You I think someone was slagging off Maxi, and you said that's it.
Don't do
I
that.
have enough of this. And you made a good point. Like, look, he had a really good start of the season. Then he got injured, and he got injured after scoring that goal for us to get that draw in the Wolves game. And give him a chance to come back. We said
if you look at the attacking players. So, Murphy, Maxi, and Willock all struggled in parts of that game because they did not have a focal point. All of them. Murphy's been playing fine recently, had quite a poor game in my opinion. I think there's a very specific reason for it. And it worked when Chris Wood in that game pressed, but he wasn't doing it. He wasn't playing the same way at all against Vallecano. I just don't want to see him up front if he's going to play like that. It's not Harry Kane, you know. If Harry Kane drops deep, but he's one of the best finishers in the world, Chris Wood is not one of the best finishers in the league, in the lower half of the league. Never mind, I mean, he can take a penalty, but I don't want to start. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see our 9 just dropping so deep all the time, and the on-rushing players not having reasonable link-up play there, and centre-backs are not being dragged out because our centre-forward is so far deep. I don't want to start playing like that. I mean, it's a tactic. It exists. It works for certain teams. I'd rather we just stuck to what we've been doing because it's really nice on the eye. It's working. It's aggressive. I don't want to see it. I can't wait for Isak to get back fit again, so we can just have those 2 as the main guys.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next to you, Chris. And I kind of know your answer already because you've answered already. But we'll get your thoughts on the game. But also, are you worried that Isak is looking like it's going to be a new year when he's back, and we don't know what the story is with Wilson? It's all a bit hush hush. But also your thoughts on the game. And what would you do? Because I know, like, would you look to try and bring in someone January?
I mean, it's always a difficult question, isn't it? I think, you know, I've said for a while that I do feel like we need an understudy striker. You only look at, you know, the likes of the Alvarez, who Man City have brought in, and look how fantastic he played during the World Cup. I do think that we need kind of an understudy, very raw striker who, you know, we can bring on. Somebody who, you know, is maybe 2 or 3 years away from being a steady starter. I do think that's what the squad's lacking, if I'm honest. To answer one of your other questions, Daz, I think I was reasonably pleased with the one out yesterday. I mean, I was speaking to Pete separately about it, and, you know, Vallecano, we're poor, in my opinion. I did expect more from them, but equally, I do take, you know, people's opinions when they say that, you know, maybe that's. I don't want to take anything away from us and us making them look poor, because I think we're so well drilled and well structured under Eddie Howe. I think we probably do the team a bit of a disservice sometimes because we just go, oh, they were crap. We managed to deal with them. I think we played particularly well yesterday, none more so than Sean Longstaff. Excuse me. I thought Sean Longstaff was excellent. Joe Willock had a good game in the middle. I thought he was everywhere. Maxi, you know, he was a bit raw, but at the same time, you know, he's not played football for a long time, and I think now that he's fully fit, I think once he gets his game time and his fitness back up to speed, match fitness, I'm talking about, I think Maxi will be massive for us in the running. It'll be interesting actually to see whether or not we play Maxi through the middle as an option. I don't know whether you know that's something Eddie Howe's going to think of or consider, but perhaps that's something we do. I'm not sure. In terms of Isak, yeah, I am a little bit worried. I've got to admit, because you know he burst onto the scene, scoring those two. Well, I'm going to say scoring those 2 goals at Anfield, because he did score 2 legitimate goals at Anfield. And you know everyone was really excited by him. He pulled up, and I think it's just because we keep thinking he's around the corner from being back, and then obviously you know they go, oh, he's had a bit of a niggle, or you know he's pulled up, or you know a bit of a delay in his comeback. So that is a bit of a concern. But then equally, as we were discussing on our chat, I want us to just get him absolutely right. Like, I don't want to rush him back because we don't need to. Hopefully, Callum Wilson's going to be fit and ready. Whether he plays on Tuesday, I doubt it. I think they'll rest him and make sure that he's fully fit, fully ready to go for the massive game on Boxing Day against Leicester. So I think we'll see Chris Wood play on Tuesday. If not Chris Woods, then maybe Maxi through the middle. I'm not sure, unless he maybe tries to put someone else on the left, whether that be Joe. Who knows? But overall, you know, it's positive. People say that preseason friendly. I keep calling it preseason. People keep saying that, you know, friendlies don't really matter, but it's always important to keep that winning mentality going. And you know, as we've already mentioned, Vallecano, you know, they're a top 10 La Liga side. So to kind of dispense with them in the way that we did is pretty impressive, and it gives us a bit of confidence going into Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, I think they're 8th in La Liga, but they don't like the cold by the looks of it yesterday.
I mean, they're normally relegation fodder. They just happen to be an 8th at the moment on a good run of form. They're not. It's not like a team that's consistently 8th in their domestic league. It's just where they are at the moment. I think it's definitely worth saying that because they're normally a lot further down than this.
Like us, we're not used to being 3rd. We'll take it. Right, Leo, that's the match yesterday covered. Actually, at this point, maybe I should remind people because I'll forget it myself. Hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. When it comes to subscribers, we are at less than 150 away from 5K. Thanks, Pete. I think it's Pete or Chris.
It was me. I love that button.
Chris. Yeah, you love that one. I love that one. But yeah, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel and get us towards 5K. We get edging closer each day, really, I guess. But answering the questions, lads. What direction we go into next?
Interesting one here. What's the lowdown on Callum Wilson? Injured or not? It was actually confirmed by Eddie Howe to a couple of journalists. One of them being Craig Hope that he actually came back fully fit. I think I said it to Martin in the chat on Saturday. I was always convinced that Chris Wood would start on Tuesday and that Callum Wilson would start in the Boxing Day game. And nothing's changed my mind on that. Callum Wilson didn't play in the game against Crystal Palace. I think we won't see Callum Wilson in the cup until we get to the last stages, just because of the amount of games that he's playing. I think Eddie Howe would much rather have Eddie Howe to choose Callum Wilson for the Leicester and the Leeds games rather than risk him in the Bournemouth game and effectively rule him out potentially in the Leicester, Leeds, and maybe even Arsenal game because they're really quick turnarounds. But doesn't seem to be an issue with regards to injury, not unless anyone else knows anything different.
I just think the whole Isak situation's a bit frustrating, to be honest. I mean, not just for the fans, but for Eddie as well, because I'm sure, like Pete just said, he would like to have that option for Isak as well in the cup games because he can utilise him through the middle or out wide. It does, he's that type of player, but not to have him at all. And then I think people were expecting him to play maybe a part in the game in Saudi or certainly the one against Vallecano, and then he's not involved at all. Alex, we spoke about this on our show. Alex isn't worried about it.
Not
I am, because I'm with Chris on this. I'm a bit worried about it because the club have been very quiet on it. And when he did get the initial injury, it didn't seem to be that he was going to be out for months on end. It seemed to be that he'd come home.
It did. His return date was mid to late December from a while ago now.
Yeah, but there's nothing on him. There's nothing about him, taking any part in friendlies and things like that. And it's dragging on. And
it was the same with Wilson, though, when he had his little niggle. They were very hush-hush about that.
It's frustrating, though. And it must be frustrating for Eddie as well. And to have a £60 million striker who's played, a couple of games, and raring to go, and then suddenly he's out for weeks on end, and having to rely on sticking Chris Wood in, who we know isn't good enough. It frustrates me, and I just wish.
I think frustrating is the right word. I agree with frustrating, but a lot of people keep saying it's weird or strange. It's not weird or strange. This is the known return date. I don't understand why it's weird.
No, but when he's been asked about Isak, he hasn't given a straight answer, Alex. And
why would he?
Well, because everything else that we've heard from the club has been very upfront and very honest.
But Eddie Howe always keeps his cards close to his chest.
But he hasn't been honest about Isak. He hasn't lied about Isak either. But
exactly, he's just kept it.
He's kept it coy, and
exactly.
I just
That's fine.
It will not with me. It's not. It might be with you, but it's not with me.
I wouldn't be worried about it.
He does that a bit, though.
Intelligent manager.
I do agree to a point in what Paul's saying. I do think that it is a concern, and the reason being is that the initial diagnosis was a thigh strain. Now, a thigh strain can be anywhere between 2 and 5 weeks. This injury's not been between 2 and 5 weeks. I know he had a slight relapse, but his relapse should have still had him at least to full fitness by the time that we finished playing Chelsea, which means after the World Cup, he should have been fit and raring to go. And he should have played over in Saudi Arabia, which then started at that point when he didn't train with the rest of the players in Saudi Arabia. They were very quick to put the picture out that he was there training, but he didn't actually train. He trained away from the rest of the players. And Jordan Jordan Cronin, who came on and did our Saudi kind of review, he mentioned it the same. Like he didn't train with the boys. Now, that for me, that's when it started raising concerns for me, and I completely understand why Paul is concerned the way I sort of feel.
It's just the thing, Pete, is that the club have never come out and said what the actual injury is.
Because
there was rumours of a thigh strain, but they've never completely said 100%. This is what the injury is, and that's what it worries me.
Strain, it's 4 to 6 weeks if it's a grade 2 thigh strain, and then the difference here is if it's a rupture, it's surgery in 3 months.
Then come out and tell us what it is. Come out and tell us what the injury is. 4 to 6
weeks has had a reoccurrence.
Surgery in 3 months would have had him, in and around where we are right now. But the reality is that it wasn't the case, which means the situation's changed partway through. And I think they possibly have observed it as a strain, but not realised there was a tear. And when he came back and had his relapse, they realised it was a tear. And I think it might not have been a massive tear, but I think that's what they're putting back. And they didn't want to risk at that point surgery and have him out guaranteed for 3 months. I think if they'd have foreseen what we did in our performances after that period, where we went on our run all the way up to Chelsea, I think they might have considered it. But I think this is why we're in the position now. And as Craig Hope and a few other journalists have mentioned, they're not expecting him to be back now until the beginning of the new year. So
there's no confirmation he didn't play in this behind closed doors game, or didn't at least play any minutes, because the journalists themselves weren't even aware this existed until they went and did some digging. So,
but the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think, like, all I'd like is, as a fan, I'd like to know what the actual injury is, and it puts the fans' minds at rest. If it was a tear that needed surgery, or it was worse than their first thought, then just come out and tell us, because it stops us as fans, worrying about the situation. Because if it is one of those injuries that is going to take a while to recover from, then just tell us, so we don't go sort of thinking, oh my God, it's a lot worse, and start worrying as fans. If it is a bad injury that is going to, if he is on target for his return date because of the injury, then that's fine. No problem at all. Just tell us. Just inform us what the injury was. I think the main doubt in a lot of fans' heads is how significant was that injury? Because it certainly, to me, isn't a strain. It must be worse than a strain, because if it was just a strain, he'd be back. And that's the only thing I'm worried about. Like you say, Alex, if it is an injury that he's on target for his comeback date, that's fine. It's just we as fans don't know. And that's all I'd like to know is what the significant injury was that's kept him out so long.
But I had a question for you all, actually. Daz, sorry to jump in there. I just wondered, did any of you find it odd? And I mean, I know Chris Waff came out, didn't he? And Pete, you put it on the group for us, and Chris Waff explains that the reason that the bench yesterday was so, full of youngsters who aren't really in and around the first team. Did any of you think there's any significance as to why Eddie Howe did that? Because we fielded a pretty strong 11. And then the bench, bar Mark Gillespie, who you could argue, has had a couple of first team appearances. The rest of the team, there was nobody who you would kind of look at and go, oh, we might be in and around the first team at some point. Do you think there was any relevance in that? Because I just found that really, really odd. Because, like I say, I looked through all the players and I'm thinking, there's not one player there on that bench who you go, oh, he's possibly going to break through. The likes of Elliot Anderson or Bondswell had a game a few months back. There was nobody
they could
on
have
there.
Played yesterday, couldn't they? I think it would be nice to know what the actual team was. For that behind closed doors game. Yeah. But it's obviously was behind closed doors for a reason, and there wasn't any press coverage on it or anything.
But I think do this in pre-season as well.
Yeah, they did. Dylan Stevenson for me is the one that probably stands out the most. I think from what we've seen of him in friendlies and coming on, he looks good, because when he came on for Chris Wood yesterday, he suddenly sort of changed the way we attack, because he was running the channels like Callum Wilson does and getting involved, whereas Chris Wood's just a bit more static. So I was really impressed with what I've seen with Dylan Stevenson.
Yeah, but just I was going to get in there, and Do you think we're expecting too much though? Do we, as fans, do you think that we have a right to know everything? Like Eddie Howe keeps his cards close to his chest, he doesn't give anything away to the journalists. Jordan has said the same when he's been out with us. That he's very coy, and obviously anything to do with transfers. That none of the managers give away that stuff, but everything he really only releases what he wants to release in regards to information. So it could be a case Isak surprised us. Maybe he did, as I think Alex said. Maybe he played in that behind the door that training match, and maybe he could be on the bench for Arsenal. Who knows?
Could be on the bench for Leicester. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we as fans. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. It's just that since the takeover, we've got, suddenly we've got plenty of people who are communicating with the fans now and letting us know what's going on, which we've never been used to for so long. We probably do sort of go over the top a little bit with, we should know this, we should know that, because we're not used to it at all. Yeah.
In actual fact, it's better that not all of it's out there. It's good that especially the coaching staff specifically have got cards they can keep close to their chest with lineups, who's available. It's a useful thing to have. We don't need to know everything. It might make a difference with the transfer window as well coming up, so they might be being coy for that specific reason. Because we've had the situation where Wilson was injured in recent transfer windows, and they knew we needed a striker. Look what happened with Chris Wood. So it could be for a reason. They've potentially been speaking to agents and clubs for the last couple of months about January, and having their £60 million striker out confirmed injured is a bad thing. So they might just be quiet about it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having all the youth players on the bench either. Some of them weren't too bad. I think Alex Murphy was very tidy when he came on the other day as well. And this is the second time they've done that, when they had the double friendlies in pre-season and they played 2 lots of senior players across 2 days. And they've done this again where they've split it. Obviously, we weren't privy to who and what on the behind closed doors game, but this is twice now in quick succession that we've had 2 games in 24 hours, and they've rotated. They've kind of split in half the first team squad. So I think we might see this again. I think it might be to do more with fitness and how they, maybe the fitness coaches and the physios want to try and ramp up for games. It'll all be for a purpose. There'll be a reason why we're doing this.
Yeah, they might even play the. I was going to say they might even play the Leicester game on Christmas Day just to fool us all. Sorry, Pete.
No, all I was going to say is that it would have made no sense for any of them that played in the behind closed doors game to be involved in the game at St James's, purely because, as you mentioned quite rightly, Alex, from a fitness point of view, the fitness coach wouldn't allow it, because you need recovery. You need recovery time, you need downtime, you need to let your body recover properly in order to play at your maximum. And actually, when you're playing 24 hours after having already played a game, that's when you're at your biggest risk of injury again. And even coming off the bench is not ideal either. And if you think about how cold it is at the moment, it's even more of a risk of injury. So all of those factors coming in, it's probably the smart move why they split the group up. I mean, some of those players, the likes of Richie and Fraser and 1 or 2 others, may not kick a ball again for us. We don't know, and it might just be a case of ticking them over and getting them ready for a move on. But what you'll find is probably a mix of both of those sets of teams over the Friday and Saturday that are going to form that team on Tuesday. I mentioned to some of the lads in the chat, I fully expect ASM to start. I fully expect, 1 or 2 others, a Willock in the team. I fully expect a Longstaff to play against Bournemouth. Why? Because we then have 6 days rest before we play on Boxing Day, which is more than enough time to get the complete rest in. So why not play a strong team? Why not play strongest team? You brush Bournemouth aside, then bring on some of your younger players to get them a few minutes, knowing that you're in the hat for the next round, and then you get a proper rest, 6 days, and we go again at Leicester. I've got a question linked to the Leicester game, that I'll throw at you guys in a second. But just before we move on, Daska, I think you got something else you wanted to talk about. There was an interesting question that just popped up here from Foxy, who's just not long joined us. So good to see you, Foxy. And he put, serious question, all this talk about with Chris Wood and all the rest of it, if you had a choice of Chris Wood or the newly released Rondon from Everton, who would you take? If you weren't aware, Rondon has been released or will be released very shortly from Everton, and will be on a free transfer. Now, you know, we're not seeing the Rondon maybe that we saw when he was on loan at Newcastle, but with all the question marks about Chris Wood, it's not a bad question to put out there. Who would you have? Daz, got to start with you.
Thanks, Pete.
Oh,
Thanks
okay.
I'll take it.
It might be interesting for you to do it last then. Yeah,
No, I can go first. I don't mind.
If you want.
The answer is neither straight away, but I know.
Well, that's the biggest cop out, isn't it? Really, neither. That's not exactly the question.
No, I'm going to answer. Okay, I'm going to put myself in Football Manager, and who am I going to take? Rondon, when he was with us, was under Rafa, was brilliant. I wanted us to sign him. I think everyone did, apart from Mike Ashley. But yeah, he's gone downhill. I heard that he got released from Everton. He's gone downhill now. I don't think his. What age is he actually? I don't know.
I think he's 33, 34. Yeah, something like that.
And Wood is 45. So yeah, I'll probably go. I'll take Chris Wood because he might get the odd penalty, and he's bound to score that. So it's a tough call, but I'd stick with Wood. And look at his best mates with Jordan Cronin now. So hey, can't be all bad.
Alex, come to you.
Well, I've just typed him in to check his age is 33. I didn't realize his first name was Jose. It's Jose Rondon. I thought there's an extra name in there. It depends on what context you're giving me the swap. Like, if the question is when we bought Chris Wood, we bought Rondon instead, then yeah, I'd take Rondon. But if you were to make me swap right now, I'm not sure. The thing I'm thinking about, which is bad, is resale. I don't care about the quality of either. I'm thinking about who is easiest to get rid of when we want to get rid of. And currently, the wages of Chris Wood are very prohibitive of getting a move away. We're going to have to, when we do eventually try and shepherd him away, we're going to have to pay half of those wages at least, which is not useful. I'm not a big fan of that. Whereas Rondon in his sort of, if we'd have signed him in sort of the old context, would have been on non-prohibitive wages, so we could use him as a third choice striker and then move him on when necessary. So for footballing ability, I mean, the little I've seen of Rondon in his Everton tenure was not much pressing from either of them. I think Wood's potentially a bit more reliable because when he turns up, when he's turned up, he can press a little bit. He can score a penalty. I can see Daz looks absolutely disgusted. Fair enough, but it's two bad choices. What do you want me to say? I'll go with Chris Wood because he's currently in a black and white shirt, and I'll support whoever's pulling on a black and white shirt. But yeah,
two for Chris Wood
in a hard place.
Paul.
So just listening to you guys there saying about sort of Rondon a few years ago, Chris Wood a few years ago as well. I remember him playing for Leeds United against us, and he bossed our defence. He was absolutely, and I said, I think it was a nighttime game. I know that. I'm not sure whether it was a Friday night, but he scored the winning goal for Leeds, and he bossed us. And I remember saying that night, I'd love him at Newcastle. You know, he was like the old style, Shearer style centre forward, where he was just bossing centre backs, and he was at it. So you know, if we look at the old Woods, Chris Wood as well as the old Rondon, you know, they both had the strengths. And I'm going with Chris Wood. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm going with Chris Wood because just remembering him in that Leeds game, he bossed the hell out of our defence, which, let's be fair, wasn't that hard to do back then. But I liked him back then, and I think, you know, even back then he was, I think, as good as Rondon. So I'm going with Chris Wood.
I've got a suggestion that I think Daz will enjoy massively. And obviously, so there is a video that Burnley put out before we signed him of his 50 goals for Burnley. And if you ever go and watch that, anybody, not now because we're on, but if you ever go and watch that, watch each and every goal and try and imagine him doing that in a black and white shirt. Never. It's like we've signed his brother. Some of those goals are brilliant. They're exceptional. Movement, power, pace, precision. Doesn't sound like I'm describing the same guy. It's bizarre. It really is bizarre.
There's another video, Alex, and I think it could have been you, Pete, that sent it on right before he signed for us. It's where someone's crossing the ball, and they're crossing the ball 10 times, and once out of those 10 crosses, this is just, I don't think he even knows if there's a goalie in it. He puts the ball in the back of the net once. So that's what I remember. Something like that happened.
Brilliant. Chris, have you been swayed in any way? Either way, Rondon or Chris Wood?
No, not really. No, I'd have to pick Chris Wood every time. I think Solomon Rondon, when he was at Newcastle, I think it was the right place, right time, right club for him. Rafa loved him, and he played really well for us. But I don't know what happened to him when he went to China, but I've been watching him for Everton, and all my blue mates have been saying to me, he's shite, Rondon, he's shite. And when they signed him, I was going, he's a good player, you just need to get him fit. And he's just never got fit. Every time I watch Rondon, I just think, where's this player gone? It's like his career's wound down, and I think playing those couple of seasons or however long he did in China has literally just ruined him, because he just doesn't look the same player, doesn't look interested. So yeah, I'd pick Chris Wood every time, and I think Alex made a good point. Chris Wood's probably worth a few quid as well, so it'd make more sense to keep hold of Chris Wood, and then obviously as and when we move him on, we should be good to get 10, 12, maybe 15 million for him. Maybe I'm being a bit overzealous there, but
who would we get? Who would pay that?
How much did you just say there?
I thought you meant euro or sterling before you finished it off. 10.
Hey, how old's Chris Wood?
How much did you say? I didn't hear that.
I think he's 30.
A Premier League proven striker.
Well, somebody tell me how much he said there. How much did you say he's worth?
I said 10, 12.
He's 31.
15, possibly 15.
Oh, 31.
His market value is currently 11 million euros, according to FOTMAR.
Chris, I think you've been sniffing too much of that Avon moisturiser, mate. The 15 million quid.
Hey, we paid 25 for them. So we could say we'd take a 10 million cut.
The biggest question is, who's going to pay that? Have you got an example club that would pay that?
As far as
apart from Everton,
Notts Forest, yeah.
Forest.
I think in the summer, if you'd have put him under the noses of Forest and said you can have him 15 million, but with some of the strikers that they've signed, I think they would have paid it.
Yeah, I think they would. Yeah, maybe so.
I think that window's gone now.
You won't now. I think the other boys are right, but I think Chris had a point with the 15 million. But if it was back in the summer with the right club, but now I think it'll be a lot more difficult for us to just get him off the wage bill. I think his next move is probably it'll be. I don't think he'll go in January, so we're looking at the summer. He'll be approaching 32.
I think 5 to 7, me. Honestly,
it's not even about the money, Paul. I think it's about who's going to take him. I think
I agree.
It was someone in the Championship that will probably take him at 32 at that point, and that's going to be
the thing. He's on over 100k a week. So for a Championship club, they're going to pay what?
He's not on 100. He is on 100k.
He is.
No,
he is.
Nah.
Google it.
Yeah.
He is.
Seriously,
hang on.
Nah.
Trippier and Bruno are on, was it? 115, 120?
I'm telling you, he's on about 105 grand a week. I'm telling you, he is.
I can hear what you're saying, Alex. I can hear what you're saying, but it's bullshit. I don't believe it. It's bullshit.
They're all those top earners are all rumored to be on somewhere between 100 and 125.
Will we leave Burnley £100,000 a week? There is no way we're doing it. There's no way.
I think we are
80.
Even 80. Right?
Even me, Chris, you put it on the screen. I don't believe it. There is no way we are paying Chris Wood £80,000 a week.
Pete, seriously, mate, he's one of our highest earners, and that's no joke. It's honestly no joke. He's one of our highest earners, and that is frightening. because that makes it even harder to ship him off anyway, because who's going to pay that kind of wage for him, never mind the transfer fee?
You're telling me that he is on a wage that nearly matches Kieran Trippier?
Yes.
It nearly matches Bruno Guimaraes.
Uh-huh.
Is this what you boys are telling me right now?
Chris, seriously, Pete, it's common knowledge up here that he's one of the highest earners in the squad.
He's smiling. He's smiling.
That's look at that. Yeah,
I'm
man.
fucking surprised if he's smiling.
100K a week. Yeah.
Nah, I don't.
Why are you surprised? Do you think it's not true, or are you just really shocked and disappointed? What?
He's not angry. He's just disappointed.
He's just disappointed.
I back any player that steps foot on the pitch. You boys know that. We talked about it all the time. But 100 grand a week for Chris Wood.
Yeah,
we should not be
There's
paying.
rumours that it's more than that, to be fair.
That amount of money per week. We shouldn't. We went mad years ago under Mike Ashley that,
we did.
That John Joe Shelby was on 80 grand a week, that Joe Linton was close to that.
Yeah, but you have to look at the way the transfer happened, though, Pete. You know, we needed a striker, I think we were because we only paid 25 million pound for him. Obviously, he got a bigger wage, and I think it's a problem for me because listen, it is definitely somewhere between 80 and 100 grand, whatever it is exactly. It's still way too much. And that is going to be the problem when it comes to finding him a new club, because he's not going to be any sort of future.
We're not getting rid of him then.
Well, exactly.
Nobody's
going to pay it, or we are going to have to subsidise his wage wherever he goes.
Honestly, this is fried my.
Do you want to know what's even worse, Pete? Is that we're pretty much confirmed. This is what
I'm already annoyed.
He's on double Callum Wilson's wage, if that's true.
Oh, yeah. He's gonna
well, he is. I mean, Callum's only on what, 50, 60 grand a week?
He's probably on somewhere between 40 and 60 in theory.
Which is
the old.
I mean, it really stinks. I mean, it does. But given the situation at the time where we were desperately looking, I think we all know that Chris Wood was a panic buy. He wasn't somebody that we'd gone for and scouted for weeks and weeks. It was never a case of that. Chris Wood came out of the blue because of the situation we were in for a striker. Therefore, the wages is what it is.
Pete's done.
Honestly, Chris, I swear to you, that has done me big time. Honestly, I want him gone in January. I want him gone.
I knew it was 80 odd. I knew it was 80 plus, but now the Paul and Alex saying 100, like I wasn't like.
See, there's a few in the chat said 100 as well. They've heard 100. Yeah. It's definitely between 80 and 100. There's no doubting about that. So, which is still disgraceful.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him, but we need to get him out. We need to get him out now, because the older he gets, the more money that he earns.
This is my exact point when you said get into a championship club. That's still going to hurt us, because we're going to have to pay 60-ish K of that, maybe more.
There is no championship club that's going to pay him.
So he's on
not a chance.
32,
not a chance.
Maybe even 33, depending on when he actually eventually leaves us. There is no championship club that's going to pay any more than 40 grand a week. They probably wouldn't even pay any more than 30 from a week, because they don't have the finances that we have in the Premier League.
Scrap my 15 million. I've just seen that. He's only got a year left.
He's only on a 2.5 we signed halfway through a season. So it's not. We're not going to have this problem forever. It's not going to be that long.
End of this season, he's got 1 year left. So we're just going to have to get rid, aren't we, and probably pay him off. That's probably what's going to happen.
So we're all agreed. Taxi.
Look at Pete's gone. Pete's so just saying he's gone. He's out the show. I'm not taking this shit anymore.
Brandy,
I'm gutted. I am absolutely gutted at that. I can't. Honestly,
I'm surprised you've not seen that before.
No, you know what? When he come in, you think 25 million, big fee and whatever. But just to come and play for Newcastle and the trajectory that we're on, I understand it. But I honestly thought he might be on about 50, 55 grand a week. It would be an upgrade on what he was on at Burnley. Yeah, that would be an understandable. But Jesus Christ.
Which says to me, when he's got a year left on his contract, the best option for Newcastle United will be to loan him out for the remainder of his contract and probably subsidise his wage wherever he goes. That's the situation we're going to be left in with Chris Wood, because
fucking done. I'm done.
Pete, it's just ruined Christmas.
But it's the only option we have, isn't it? Because like Pete said, there's, realistically, the Championship is the only place that is Chris Wood good enough for after he leaves Newcastle. So therefore, the realistic opportunity for Newcastle to get rid of him is by loaning him out for that final year and subsidising his wages to whatever club he goes to.
We've had to do that with players like Hayden and Gale, so it's good. Well,
lads, honestly, in my mind, from now on, if he don't score every game, I'm fuming.
Darren's just put a comment in there saying on football,
80 grand, 100 grand a week. If he don't score, I'm fuming.
Well, Darren's just put on the chat there on Football Manager. He's on 100k a week now.
Football Manager is the first one I sell.
I know. But they're normally
I sold him for 1.5 million just to get him out.
They're normally right about the wages, though, aren't they? They're roundabout right, because they do a lot. They do a lot of background research on all the clubs. They're doing an amazing job on Football Manager with the research. So you've got to say, it's definitely between 80 and 100, which is stinkingly wrong. It really is. But I think at the time we were desperate for a striker. Newcastle suddenly had Chris Wood on the radar for 25 million quid. So they thought, right, because we're getting him for 25 million, we can pay him a higher wage just to get him into the club. And that's what they've done.
Saying that Hendrick was on 50 odd grand a week.
He was,
He was a free transfer.
The fury's coming out, and boys, on our review shows, you're going to feel it, because if he don't score, I'm sorry. Look, these boys. Now, I've been in bed for 5 days. I've been absolute state. I started to feel a little bit better. That made me feel fucking worse.
Yeah, but can you imagine that he's on a win bonus as well, Pete?
And a goal bonus. Keep it.
And a match day squad bonus.
Yeah. Oh man, it's scary, man. It really is. Because there's players overseas who you think, right? I mean, Alex, we were talking about on our transfer show some of the wages that some of these star players are on in Portugal and places like that are like 15, 20 grand a week. And then you look at and think, right, they are fantastic footballers with incredible statistics, and then there's Chris Wood on 100 grand
it's
a
the
week.
Premier League. It's why even on football manager games, it's why the English leagues are so the prices are so inflated. I mean, there's even worse. If you guys haven't looked at the wages, there's some even worse rumors out there. I mean, a lot of people seem to think that Dan Burns on really low wages as well. The general consensus is that Burns on somewhere between 20 and 40k a week, which seems rather low, considering how he's played and who he is.
Club, though. He just wanted to come back and play for
that.
Newcastle.
Might be why they might have used that against him. But there's I've got no truth in that. So that's.
I'm worried for that Christmas tree behind Peter.
He's just going to back it down.
Chop it down.
No, because I'd be sleeping outside in -4 if I did. So, and I'm not well anyway, so I want to be able to survive the night. So that's why it's not already down.
Oh God!
Any thoughts on reversing that rating you got the other couple of matches ago, lads? Based on that info.
I mean, he did press well, but not 100 grand well.
No, honestly, if I'd have known that then, maybe it would have been different. That's what I'm going to say. Fuck you now. That's thrown me big time.
Look forward to the next rating show, the next match review. Look, we'll move on to another question. And actually, something that came up on Twitter, Paul, we'll go to you for this one because it's directed at you. And I think it was from Kevin. And he was asked the question about ice hockey. So tell us a bit about, like, we know you played ice hockey in the past, but tell us a bit about it, because I know nothing about it, as in your career in ice hockey.
Well, listen, greatest game on earth as far as I'm concerned, along with football. Don't get me wrong, football's up there. But ice hockey was a big part of my life from 4-year-old or something like that. And it continued to be until I had to retire. But, even through all the injuries that I had, I wouldn't change a thing. It was a fantastic sport. I made some wonderful friends. And, I have ended up with, metal plates in my hand here where I've got massive scars, and I've got 2 metal rods just at the top of my cheekbone in my head here, 2 huge steel plates down the cheekbone and in there because I had the whole right-hand side of my face smashed, which eventually forced me to quit playing. But I did see the comment on Twitter about is the fighting real or is it staged? All I would say is that go and watch, just put ice hockey fights in on your search on YouTube and you'll see if it's staged or not. There's some fantastic brawls in there and knockouts and things like that. But the thing is, you can literally kick the shit out of someone and you get 5 minutes in the penalty box. Like you did that to somebody in the street, you'd be in jail for a couple of years. You know what I mean? So it was a good way to take out your anger on people, or if they wound you up, you just sorted them out and you got on with the game. But the beauty about it was that if you had a fight with someone on the ice, you would always have a pint with them in the bar after the game. Whatever happened on the ice, it stayed there. And you met up in the bar with the opposition players and families and things like that after the game. And it was all just, it wasn't even spoken about. It was just, you get on with things. I had when I first signed for Whitley Bay, I had a fight with someone from Billingham. Because when I moved to Whitley Bay from Durham, I got dogs abuse when I first played there because it was like moving from Sunderland, Newcastle to Sunderland or Sunderland to Newcastle, whichever way, because Durham was classed as Mackham land for some reason. But it took me a while to win the Whitley fans over. But I did in this fight, with this lad from Billingham. I ended up knocking 2 of his teeth out. He had a black eye. But I skated off the ice and I got a standing ovation from the crowd and that won them over. But that's how you had to do things back then. But I met him. I was out in Durham 2 weeks later and I met him in a bar. And we just shook hands, and he said, "I didn't realize you could fight like that." And then we just had a laugh and had a pint, and it was all forgotten about. So it is very real, but it's a fantastic sport. If you haven't seen it, it's very fast moving, and but it was called a family sport, which always makes me laugh. But seriously, it was. Loads of families used to, still do. They go to Whitley Bay and things like that. And even if you watch the NHL over in America and Canada, there's lots of families in the crowd. The opposition fans mixed together. There's no crowd trouble like there would be in football if your fans are mixed together and stuff like that. I mean, it's very different. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But unfortunately, that injury crippled my career because I got told if I took another heavy hit on that side of my head, I could end up in a wheelchair. So I do look back at it now and think that the amount of it's very different now, even talking about football and concussion and things like that, and getting illnesses after your career. You look at the footballers and how they talk about heading the ball and things like that. Michael, shut your face. You're not a proper NHL fan. Then you talk about the head and the ball and leading that to head illnesses and things like that.
Dementia.
Dementia especially. I am convinced that that's why I have Parkinson's disease now, because concussion back then, when I played in the sort of 90s, early 2000s, it was never looked at as it is now. Ice hockey games now, you've got people sitting in the crowd, concussion assessment. So if you get a heavy body check or you go into the boards head first and things like that, the concussion guy takes you off the ice. You have to come off. That's protocol now. There was never anything like that back then. So I remember times sitting on the bus coming home. The physio would tell us not to go to sleep because I'd had a head injury, or one of my teammates would have a head injury. But my consultant to this day says he can't 100% say it, but the amount of head injuries that I got and bangs to the head that I got playing ice hockey has led to me having Parkinson's. I'm in no doubt about that because it happens in boxing, happens in football, it's happening in rugby. There's a lot more focus on that now with what happened with Doddy Weir, etc., with the disease he had. So there's a lot more focus on the head injuries now in all sports than there was back then. But as I say, I'm convinced that illness came from the amount of bangs to the head that I got back then.
But Paul, I just wanted to ask you, because you talked about obviously the fights at the beginning, and that's the meat and bones for me. That's the thing that I wanted to know about is the fighting. But interestingly, it was linked to the concussion actually, what you've just talked about, because what would happen when you were playing when someone got knocked out. So if someone got knocked out in the game, what would happen? Could they and did they at any point come back on and continue the game afterwards?
Well, I did twice. I can remember in my career that happened to me. One was at D side. I got checked from behind, like it's called a cross check. He come with his stick like that, right across the back of my shoulders, and sent me head first into the boards. And even though I had a helmet on, it knocked me out. And I woke up in D side hospital later on, because what happened is I went off the ice. I felt fine. I went back on the ice, and within a couple of minutes of being back out there, I went down again, and I can't remember anything apart from waking up in hospital. And then it happened again at home at Whitley Bay. We played Murrayfield races. I took an elbow to the side of the head, which knocked me out, but I stupidly came back on again. But what I'm saying is now that wouldn't happen now, because the assessor in the crowd would make sure that you were checked first by the doctor or the hospital and assessed for concussion. And if there was even a slight risk of you having concussion, you wouldn't be allowed back on. But back then it was very, very different, which somebody that played alongside me he's in a wheelchair now. Some of the guys that I used to play with have started campaigns now to look after people who've had or who have got illnesses after playing a career in ice hockey, similar to what football is doing, similar to what rugby is doing. There's a lot more on it now, but the fights have changed in a way, because the fights that happen nowadays, the players leave the helmets on and stuff like that. Whereas back in my day, you would get prepared. You would say, right, we're going to go with somebody. You take your helmet off, you take your gloves off. Some would take their elbow pads and shoulder pads off, and so they've got freedom to hit. And it's what we did. But now you're not allowed to do that. You take your helmet off or anything like that, you get an extra penalty. So it's a great sport now, because there's a lot. Well, it's always been a great sport, but the safety aspect of it has improved so much now to what it was back then. But I really do look back and think, right, I've got Parkinson's disease now for a reason, because I took so many bangs to the head, and it wasn't properly. I didn't get proper medical advice on it, because concussion wasn't a big thing back then, but it is now. But it's just sad, the amount of not just ice hockey, but as I say, the other contact sports from players who played years ago, that it's very different experience to what it is now, with protocols and stuff like that for injuries.
No, very interesting, Paul. To hear your experiences and how things go. But
I do it all again. I would do it all again, no doubt about it. I would do it all again.
So you'll say it's another option for Fabian Schär. If he doesn't, after the football, if he doesn't go into acting, he could go into ice hockey. That's something for him.
But seriously, Daz, when I see players like Fabian Schär get bangs to the head as much as he does, you have to think, wow, what's the long term? What's the long term angle on that when he turns like 45, 50 years old? Is he going to suffer from what he's taken and the bangs on the head, because he gets them all the time?
I'm sure he's got a modelling contract lined up somewhere.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably.
Right. Any other questions,
just before we move on, Daz, just 1 second. Foxy's put, what was Paul's punch-up record in ice hockey? Sorry, Daz. Or Chris, I'm not sure.
Well, it wasn't. I did have quite the record. I mean, I backed up my teammates. Put it that way. I would jump in if someone was getting a muller or someone was checked badly and it was unfair, and you tend to stick up for your teammates that way. I did. The only time I had a lengthy ban it wasn't for a punch up. It was for wiping the referee out. But it wasn't on. It wasn't on purpose though.
Lies.
No. I skated out of the penalty box, and I seen this lad who'd give me a little bit of crap earlier on in the match, and I thought, right, I'm going to run you right in the boards. So I literally came out the penalty box as he was, flying up the ice, and I'd just come to cut him off at the right time, right on the middle of the ice, just to wipe him out. He ducked out the way because he was a chicken shit. He ducked out the way, and the referee was right behind him. And I honestly hit the referee at something like 40 miles an hour. And the referees didn't have any padding on, obviously. And he literally, it was like one of those cartoons. He hit the boards and slid down. And I got a 40-game ban. which was reduced to 8 on appeal. So, but yeah, it was mad. I had to go to London and everything, and it was but it was crazy. But I loved it. It really was. But
that's 2-game reduction. I love that.
Because obviously I'd had an argument with the referee before he put me in the penalty box for the original penalty, so people thought it was a deliberate act. But you know, luckily people vouched for me, and I got that reduced.
Sorry, Daz. Go for it.
No. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh yeah. There's a few. Okay. We've had that about Isak. Look, we haven't really talked about transfers as such. So let's talk about Ian's question. So, who do you want to see in January? We're always going to have this question, and we need to get used to it. It's not going away. It's only going to ramp up a little bit more. So, boys, who do we want in January? Any way you want to start?
Maddison.
I'll start.
Yeah, go on. Go for it.
My answer is quick. This will do for me. And it's a bit of a plug because get ready because the fully loaded transfer show is coming back again. We did have a winter warm-up one there with Sean Casey, but we are coming back pretty soon. But lots of names mentioned in the last couple of days, and there's names dropping every day. Look, some are potentially realistic, some are not so realistic. So keep an eye out for a fully loaded transfer show. Sorry, back to Paul. I think you were going to go to your answer.
Yeah. Alex, go on, Alex. Who do you want?
Oh, Alex.
He's curious. Well, we reviewed a few people in the last couple of transfer shows that I'm kind of really excited about. I saw you got on your little picture there of Kvaratskhelia, the Georgian winger, who is absolutely the Napoli winger from Georgia.
Him. I just call him him. Him.
Kvaratskhelia?
Call him KK, Paul. Call him KK.
KK.
So he is absolutely insane. I think there might be a bit of a scramble for him. But one of the positive things about being in the bracket we're in now is not everybody can buy players because, you know, they've got some teams have got full squads and they might not be in the right phase to buy any more players. You know, Arsenal haven't bought players in the January transfer window for a couple of seasons. City don't always do that either. So, you know, we might not have competition for certain signings. We might have a clear run. But yeah, him and the Japanese guy, Kamada, we looked at as well. I thought was very, very intriguing.
Is he from Germany?
Yeah, plays for Eintracht Frankfurt. 26 years old. Super, super high energy, loads of tackles, loads of touches, loads of tidy passes. Plays currently in the midfield in a 3-4-3, but can play sort of attacking midfield and out wide. But just crazy high energy, and was part of this Japan team that did really well in the World Cup as well. So I'd love to see James Maddison as well, but I'm kind of bored of talking about it. We've talked about it so much. And it was refreshing.
Wow, you are really trying to upset Pete Davey tonight, aren't you? With Chris Wood's wage, and then you said you're bored of talking about Maddison. I mean, no, he's trying to destroy you, Pete. Come on.
Well, I would take Maddison. The thing is, because he's currently perfect for the positions we potentially needed upgrading. He fits in like a perfectly carved jigsaw piece puzzle right in the slot. He is the perfect piece right now for what we need, but we've done a lot of talking about him, so, you know, and the Kvaratskhelia guy plays in the same position as Maxi, so it's a controversial one because he could be crazy expensive,
name, don't you?
All right, then the Napoli winger from Georgia. I'll say that each time.
Come on, I said I meant does he play in Germany? Not is he from Germany? Jesus Christ, Ian. Germany, he plays in Germany. I didn't realize that.
Oh, it's not like Ian to be on the wind up, is it? Jesus.
But that Japanese guy, we when our transfer show, when we reviewed him, he's got so much pedigree. He's played 6 Champions League games, a bunch of Europa League. He's played in all the cups, played in all the World Cup games for Japan, played all the Bundesliga games. He is so pivotal, and he's high energy and seems to get through it as well. So it's an interesting shout.
Interesting, Paul. Anyone that stands out for you? Anyone that you're kind of thinking that we could get, whether it's realistic within the fan base or not? Is there anyone that stands out?
Do you know what? I've had my heart set on Maddison, Pete. If I'm honest, I've had my heart set on Maddison for a while now. I think he'd bring, but not. I think another player as well, possibly on the. See, I would have said the right-hand side but Miggy's playing so well this season. Do we really need to concentrate on there? I don't know. I think Maddison is the missing piece, if I'm honest. Someone that can play different positions, but really make a difference. You know what I mean? Improve the squad, because whoever comes in has to improve on what we've already got. So for me, I'm sticking by James Maddison, but the Japanese bloke as well. I mean, if he is
the Chinese man,
I was, but if he's on our radar, even in China, if he's on our radar, then I'd be really happy to get him as well. But you know what? It's. I mean, how weird is it? We're in the situation where we're going into January and we're not saying, "Oh, we should get him. We should get him. We should get him." These players have stood up to the plate and will continue to do so. So I think just a couple of signings just to improve that squad level a little bit. Thuram is obviously a big one as well. If we can get him for, his 12 million fee has been banded around, but Jesus, and Jack Harrison at Leeds he's impressed me as well.
Thuram after that, it's got to be Thuram. He's on 10 goals this season, 3 assists.
Even faster, weren't they?
What's his wages like?
Like
61,000 euros apparently at Borussia Mönchengladbach. Apparently, he was born in Italy. He's not even French.
By the way, can I just? She's going to kill me, right? But there was a comment from somebody called Nora, right? Just further up the chat.
Nora, this one.
Yeah. Now that's Nora Batty, okay?
Yeah.
That's
Susan. Some wine.
That is Susan. Right, and I'll tell you why she's come on as Nora, because she's changed her name from Mrs. Toon Review because she was going to join up as a member to try and win the telly, but she didn't want to come on as Mrs. Toon Review. So she's changed her name to Nora.
He's proper outed you there, Susan.
Yeah, but now but the funny thing is, I got a message from her about 20 minutes ago saying, I can't change my name back to Mrs. Toon Review for 14 days. So she's now stuck as Nora Batty for 2 weeks. It's because sometimes when she goes off on one, I call her Nora Batty, so she's changed it to Nora, but you can't change it back for 2 weeks.
That's her name now, Paul. That's it. Nora.
Paul, if Susan had won the telly, would you have told us?
Of course. What kind of man do you think I am? I would have some.
He'd have had it in the background when he come on.
Yeah, it'd be in my studio. I'd be using it for the watch along sale. And underneath it would be compliments of loaded mag NUFC. Oh, bloody hell.
That would be quality.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That'd be lovely, that. I wish Nora won now.
Oh, man, honestly, you have to love her, man. She's just class. She's so funny. Oh, God.
She's going to kill you when you come off this show now, Paul.
Oh, well, nothing new there, is there, really? You know what I mean? She's fantastic, man. She's just so funny.
You got to be careful with you standing on level 7 on Tuesday. You might plan something.
Well, she'll probably get in touch with you asking you to throw us down the stands or something. I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. Level 7.
He's not good with heights, and level 7's quite high.
Yeah. It is. I'm not good with heights either. Chris, who would you want in January?
I'm going to stick with my original one, and I've just checked where they are in the league, actually. And I think because he didn't have the opportunity to light up at the World Cup, I think we should go in for Moussa Diaby. The Leverkusen are currently sitting in 12th. I think he'd be a fantastic addition to the squad. What was interesting, what Alex was saying then as well, about the January transfer window. What is intriguing is that it is an unusual transfer window in that we're just coming off the back of a World Cup, but we're now in that position, aren't we, where loads of clubs or loads of players will possibly be thinking, oh, is it a good time for the move? And in normal circumstances, you'd say January isn't a good time for the move. But any players who are thinking, do you know what, I missed out on that World Cup, I should have played. The likes of Maddison, I think we've spoken about, he'll have been disappointed he didn't even get a minute of World Cup football. I think there'll be a lot of players who are thinking, yeah, now could be a good time to move. And obviously, the advantage we've got as a club is, one, we can move players out pretty quickly if we want to, in terms of squad numbers. But also, I think so. I think
that's one of the things I'm concerned about. In all honesty,
I think we can, Alex. I think we saw what they did, with the likes of Isaac Hayden, Jeff Hendrick, Kevin Clark.
Yeah, but Federico we're still paying half of their wages, so they're out in all but. They are out, but we're still having to pay a lot of that money, and it's still on the books.
It is. But I suppose you've just got to take your medicine, haven't you? And the good thing is, we can, we have got the resources to be able to do that. Some other top clubs who aren't in the position we're in. I mean, look what Arsenal did with Aubameyang. They paid him off. And what was he on, like 350 grand a week or something? We haven't. I'm not going to bring up Chris Walls. We haven't got any players who are on astronomical wages who we can't get rid of. I'm talking about the likes of, say, I don't know, Ryan Fraser, Matt Ritchie, players like that. Who
we've also got Matty Longstaff and Kel Watts coming back January the 1st, whose contracts are going to expire. So we're going to have to do something with them.
Yeah.
Their wages are not massive though.
Matty's on 35.
Oh, don't get me started again. He's a win.
To be fair, they're all wages that you can cover. For example, Isaac Hayden, I think he's got it in his contract that if Norwich get promoted,
What's automatically
on significantly reduced wages.
Well, yeah.
At least
renegotiate.
At least half. So yes, give him a new contract.
We'll give him 10 grand a week, but he can have 5 grand per goal bonus. There you go.
I'm hoping that deal is that, by the way, that his standard wage is 40 grand a week, but his
Pete, just sink it.
I'm just saying.
Pete, I'm sorry, you have to deal with it, man. You've got to deal with it.
Anyway, back to the point that Chris was making. It was a good point, and that we've got so many players that have already moved on. And I know what you're saying, Alex, but we can cover those wages. And with Isaac Hayden, if Norwich get promoted, the deal automatically gets done. That he moves to Norwich for whatever fee that they've agreed. So that's potentially, with the way Norwich are playing, they're in and amongst it. When it gets to the business end, they might turn it on. Isaac Hayden's barely kicked a ball for them this season. He might make the difference. And if they get promoted, that's one big wage we don't have to worry about again. And it would be the same for a number of others. But regardless of that, we're good for those type of wages. If those players are on 40 grand, 50 grand a week, and we're paying half of that, that's 25, 20, we're good for that. Like it's where you get to those bigger wages that you don't want to be paying. But for me, like we've got players, and I don't know whether you guys agree, but we've got Jamal Lewis needs a loan. He needs to be moved on. Is he going to make it? There's a big question mark there. Is he good enough to? Definitely, but he needs games. Matt Ritchie needs to move on. Paul Dummett isn't kicking a ball. He looks more like a coach.
I mean, his contract's expiring.
The videos and stuff that I've watched of him over in Saudi Arabia and the way he's mingling with the squad and the players, he looks more like a coach or an ambassador than
a cheerleader.
He literally does. Like you put him and Shola Amiobi side by side, and you think that you got a loan manager there when you got a first team coach next to him. Like he doesn't look like a player anymore. So why are we paying him a wage, and why is he creating a space in our squad?
To respond to what you've just said, I agree that it's not. We can afford all of those wages, but I think it might be prohibitive in the transfer window. I think that might be the difference between an additional player or a top player necessarily, because if because all of that might add up to 100k in wages, and that might sway a decision on a player only for the next, maybe for January, the summer, only for the next window or two. Then as they sort of all cycle out, this will never be a problem again. But at the moment, it could be the difference between another player or not another player, possibly, if it all adds up.
But you can flip it the other way, in that, yeah, we are still paying half of their wages, but the other half that we're not paying, is that not then money towards another player that we could potentially sign? And
especially if we shop abroad. I mean, we've already spoken, the German league, Spanish league, Italian league, French league, they're all paying players 20, 30, 40 grand a week. To join Newcastle, we get them on 60, 70 grand a week, hopefully not 100 like Chris was. And you can tempt these players and you can give them a pay rise. Look at Bruno. I think Bruno in France, was he on about 30, 40 grand a week?
About 40.
Like
yeah, but he's on about 120 now. The thing is we've gone for a lot of big hitters and they're all on sort of 100 plus.
That's the standard.
I think Burn's the only one I think Burn and Pope are the only ones that came on.
They're the kind of wages that we're going to have to start paying if we want to bring in the quality.
Actually,
definitely. Yeah. The one thing none of us have talked about, we may have talked about like previously and on other shows. You might have talked about it on your show, Paul. Nobody's talked about loans, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. And in this January transfer window, there will be, and we've just talked about it, there'll be players coming out of the World Cup that might have not been playing for their respective clubs, not getting games, but had a really good World Cup and thinking, you know what, it might be time for me to move on. And it might be one of them that we pick up on a loan move for a season and say, come and play for us with a view to sign for us, play regular football, get them for a nominal fee, 2 or 3 million for 6 months, pay minimum wages.
It's going to have to be outside of the Premier League, though, because there's been a lot of reports that clubs like Arsenal and Chelsea were just not playing ball.
Yeah,
but so like a Pulisic loan, for example.
Well, Harry Maguire's put himself in the window, hasn't he? To be fair to him, he's had a terrible time at Man United. Come into the World Cup, and for me, he was one of our better players in the World Cup, Harry Maguire. So he's put himself back in the window. I'm not saying for us, nothing like that. But what you're saying, Pete, is that players like Harry Maguire would suddenly become recognisable to another club, thinking, you know what, maybe he just needs away from Man United. He needs a fresh start. We'll take him on loan, see how he does, with a view to a permanent move. So there will be things like that happening, definitely.
Yeah, Harry Maguire was probably England's best performer, in my opinion, along with the likes of Saka. Rashford had a couple of good games as well, scored a few goals. Harry Maguire quietened a lot of critics. I wouldn't personally take him at Newcastle. I think
No.
I think our centre-backs are better.
They wouldn't.
You were saying that anyway, Paul, anyway.
Yeah.
Our centre-backs are better than Harry Maguire at this current phase, but I think you're right. He needs to move on. But going back to your point, Alex, I don't actually... When I was talking about loans, I wasn't actually looking at the Premier League because of that reason. Any like people like Pulisic, and I'm sure we'll discuss him over the next month. We might be interested in him. I don't think we're getting, because those type of players now would come to Newcastle, but the clubs wouldn't let them leave because of where we are. We're currently sitting ahead of Chelsea in the Premier League comfortably, having beat them at St James's Park. You think they're going to release Christian Pulisic to Newcastle and think, oh yeah, we don't need him. Let's go and give him to Newcastle. Let's make Newcastle stronger to strengthen their push for the Champions League.
With 9 points.
Are you really going to think that they're going to do that? Are you going to think that Man United are going to do the same? Not that we want anyone from Man United. Or you think Arsenal are going to do the same? You think Man City, Tottenham? None of those teams are going to do it. Liverpool as well. None of them are going to do it. So when I was referring to loans, I was referring to the continent. I was referring to the likes of, is there someone in
big
Europe?
European clubs?
Well, Pete, look at the deals Tottenham did with Juventus that went totally under the radar. They got a loan deal for Bentancur, a loan deal for Romero, and a loan deal for
2-year loan.
Juventus is a fair shout because they're currently going through a lot of trouble. So there might be a few cheeky deals available.
You said that.
You said that.
Yeah.
Juventus are there for the picking.
They're going to have to clean their books very easily.
Rabiot, for example. One, McKennie, I think it was talked about. I think
Chiesa.
McKennie and Rabiot.
Chiesa. I think everyone will be in for Chiesa. So
Is Dybala still there?
No, he's at Roma.
Dybala's got to Roma.
Has he gone to Roma now?
With Jose, but again, it's been smart. It's looking at those type of teams and going, right,
Loan to buy.
on the peripheries, who can we pick from them that's going to play regularly for us but not for them and make us stronger? That's going to cost a nominal fee. Yeah, we'll cover the wages. That's okay, but we'll pay a nominal fee so it doesn't affect FFP. Get a kind of projected fee agreed for the summer if they do well. A little bit like Matty Target, all that sort of stuff. Can we then play smart and get someone like that and then go into the English market and go, yeah, okay, let's get Maddison. Let's get somebody else. Or let's get Moussa Diaby. Let's get Mudryk. Let's get someone like that. Because I talk about Maddison because I would like Maddison. I'm not saying he's going to come to us. I would like Maddison because I think signing James Maddison is a statement for the Premier League because we're not just signing a quality player, but we're signing an English player. A player that's going to play for England regularly in the years to come, in my opinion, because he's that good. And I think us signing him is a real statement for the rest of the Premier League to say, we're not messing around, we're here. And that's why I would love to sign Maddison, added to the fact that we're getting him from Leicester, and I don't like them for obvious reasons, but he's not the only one. Moussa Diaby, Mudryk, KK is a pipe dream, but a dream that we I think in the summer would be more than capable of matching for sure. And there are other players out there. And
if we got Champions League,
Juventus, by the way, there's a lot in Juventus that we could pick at. Locatelli, Kostic, Leandro Paredes, who literally just lifted the trophy, the World Cup. You've also got Chiesa, Vlahovic is still there. So there's a lot to be plucked off that carcass, that's for sure.
Definitely. So, it's one of them. If we can pick up a nice little loan deal and then go big, and I say big, but 50, maybe 60 million and go out and, we're not spending the January money that we did last year, but if we go out and spend 50, 60 million on one player, get another loan in, two players of immense quality that's going to kick us on for the rest of the season, I think most Newcastle fans will be happy with that.
Just to add in as well, boys, and again, this is something that we were talking about on our chat. I noticed that Tottenham signed an 18-month loan deal from Juventus for Kulusevski, and a fee of 31 million euros has been agreed as a permanent deal. But one of the clauses in that deal is that Tottenham have to finish in the Champions League places. And it just made me think. I mean, imagine we picked Tottenham to the Champions League places and then swooped in for Kulusevski in the summer. Who's 22? I think Kulusevski is.
Yeah, 22.
Because I'm expecting Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea all to improve. They're all going to improve. So then it's that battle, then, isn't it, with Tottenham for potentially third, fourth spot. But there's no reason why that couldn't happen. Because Kulusevski, that'd be some sign in that, and Juventus would take it.
Look,
double law.
You're absolutely right, Chris, in what you've just said, and I think linking quite nicely to that. And I don't know if you want to keep the league table up, Daz. Is that Jano's asked a really, really good point, and he's put, "Why can't we win the league this season?" And I think I'm not saying we are going to win the league this season. I don't think anybody's saying that, but I think Jano's asking the question.
Chris Wood.
Why can't
Chris Wood?
Hey, if we won the league with Chris Wood,
answer.
I'd improve his wages. If we won the league with season, you know what? You're 100, I give you 150. You know what? You won is the league.
Listen, it happened to Leicester. Why can it not happen to Newcastle? Everybody was saying the same when Leicester were up there. Why can't Leicester win it? Can Leicester win it, etc., etc. Leicester went on and won it. It can happen. I don't think it will.
It's not impossible. It would require so many other moving parts that are not in our control to go our way. It would require Man City to be consistently wobbly. It would require Arsenal's season to fall off a bit. And then it would require us to have our starting 11 100% fit for the majority of the season. And then we need to maintain this form and getting the results on top of it. And then have a good January. There's so much that would have to go right for that even to be possible. It's not impossible, but it's improbable.
The first part's already started to happen in that, the likes of Chelsea have fallen off. Liverpool have fallen off. Tottenham, although they're fourth, are not really playing well. Their fans are going mad at the moment. They're not happy with the way they are.
They're never happy.
And
Gabriel Jesus
Man
has
United
just
are
gotten
not.
injured.
Man United are very, very much hit and miss this season. So you've got 4 of that top 6 that are not performing the way they are or the way they're expected to. You mentioned about Man City. They are at times hit and miss. They lost to Brentford in their last game. You know what I mean? They got beat by them.
Yeah, but a hit and miss Man City is still a 90-point season.
You're
we're
right.
going to have to get... Can you imagine us going from a 44-point season to a 90-point season?
You're absolutely right. But who's to say that? Who's to say in equal to? And I think Paul, you've mentioned this earlier. Chris, I think you've mentioned this too. Who's to say that Man City's crumbly or flaky start won't continue? And who's to say that Newcastle's great start can't continue? You know, those 2 things can still happen in the second half of the season. Yes, they normally get better, but equally, both teams can still go on the trajectory that they are. And I believe if we continue on our trajectory, we could get more points than Man City. I'm not saying we're going to win the league, but I'm saying there is a chance that those things could happen. The one thing you're saying, and you made a really good point, is that Arsenal have to drop off.
Well, Gabriel Jesus is now injured, so that is a possibility.
Yeah, helps.
I think it helps as well, because we were lucky at the World Cup that we had 4 main players involved, and barely any of them played any football. In these other clubs, a lot of their players played in that World Cup. So they're going to have to hit the ground running when they come back. We were lucky, as I say, you know, Nick Pope started in the friendly at the weekend, as did Kieran Trippier. Callum Wilson, by all accounts, we believe is fully fit. He's came back unscathed. And Fabian Schär, he had that nightmare game when he started for Switzerland, but I'm sure, you know, his confidence will be okay once he's, you know, back in the team. It's going to be an unusual second half of the season, and we're going to see, I think we will see some teams drop off, and we will see some teams struggle. But it's how we perform over this Christmas period. You know, we've got Leicester away, we've got Leeds, which you expect, you know, us to win. But if it's key that Arsenal game. If we go to the Emirates and even if we get something, even if we get a draw at the Emirates, I think people will start sitting up and going, hang on, is this form going to continue? We saw the form from last season with Eddie Howe. We were in the top 3 in the end from January to the end of the season. We were top 3 side.
We were still miles off in points, though. I mean, if you, I'm going to stick to my name, and I'm going to use the data. If you go on our expected points, if you continue our form from this season throughout the whole season, we finish on 67, anywhere between 65 and 70 points. I think it was about 67. I worked it out at. Now, does that win you the league? Absolutely not. We would have to be. It's not just about maintaining form. We would have to step it up even further. We'd have to take it up another 2 or 3 notches to get anywhere near a title push. Just because of the unless, as has been suggested, teams like Man City get absolutely nowhere near the 90 points this season. If they all fall off and they all have sort of a 70 to 75 point season, which is really unlikely, you know, I think it's going to have to be a bit of both. I think we're going to have to increase a little bit, and the others are going to have to drop off. But I don't think there's any way we get to a 90-point sort of. It's just too much.
And this is the great thing about aiming high. If you aim high, so if we aim, I don't know, say we get to March, April, and we're still in and amongst that title shout. If you aim high and then you just fall below that, that's going to be a Champions League spot.
This is mental that we're talking about. Can we reach 90 points? This is mental.
It's ridiculous.
The one thing that's important, actually, we're not saying we're going to. We're not saying we're going to do it. Yano wasn't asking the question saying we are going to win the league. He was saying, you know, why can't we? And it's an interesting discussion. I mean, like you're right in what you're saying.
We're on 30 points right now.
With 75 points, which is one of the lowest.
Yeah,
you know,
we would need that. That's what we would need, that sort of scoreline, and the others to have a stinker.
For us to win the Premier League, though, in any season, we're going to have to amass more points in that, because the competition is a lot more solid now than what it was back in 2000. What is it? 2016 then won the league. 2016-17. So,
if Jamal Lascelles gets a Premier League winners medal, again, that's another thing that I'll dye my hair blonde for.
Hey, they had many a player at Leicester that didn't deserve. I forgot the name now. The lad that their captain that lifted the
Wes
title.
Morgan.
Where's Morgan?
Danny Simpson.
He played half of the season.
Danny
He
Simpson
played a
was
lot of it.
outstanding for us and
was.
for them. He
was
good in their title season. But Wes Morgan was good in their season
was
as
very,
well.
very good for us, and he was outstanding for them that season. So
Christian Fuchs was superb as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Fuchs, Hoof. The fact that Hoof and Wes Morgan won a Premier League title, like they for me are the same category as Jamal Lascelles. Like they've got a Premier League title because they.
I think Wes Morgan's a little bit better than Lascelles.
No chance. They had outstanding seasons for one season, but they were not. Their attributes and their ability was not any different to Jamal Lascelles. And I actually think in some areas Jamal Lascelles is probably better in some areas. That's just my opinion. That's my observations of watching them. But nobody would have said a year before that Wes Morgan was ever going to be anywhere near winning a Premier League title. The same with Rob Hoof. The reason why Chelsea
they're nearly relegated, so
respectful. And then all of a sudden they had one great season and won the Premier League. It can happen to anybody. It's one of those things. But
see it now. Just Paul Dummett hugging
back to Janos
Lascelles.
God, sorry, Daz, go on.
Back to Janos' question though. Sorry, the delay is kicking in for me, so it's hard to get in. But back to Janos' question. Winning the league is equal to us getting in that top four. That's winning the league for us, I think, this season. I think it's just a bit ridiculous to think anything else for better than that this season. Look at it. It's a project. We have to keep our heads on the ground as well. But if we could get top four, unbelievable season then. But it could all. We don't know what way it's going to come. Look, the lads look like they're coming back in the same form that they were before they left. So, but we don't know. It's going to take a few games before we can assess where we are now and how our season is going to play out. And we've got the cup games as well to throw into the mix as well. So it's going to be very interesting.
Just
next
to keep
couple of
on
weeks
that.
in January.
Just keep on that thought, Daz. You mentioned about the cup games. One question from John Noble. He said, who do you think will play up front against Bournemouth? I know we've kind of talked about this before. Are we really set on Chris Wood starting up front? Or do you think, I think one or two people have mentioned about maybe Callum Wilson being on the bench or maybe
Rondon.
In some point, maybe even Rondon on the free, although he won't be available to January. But yeah, are we set on Chris Wood starting on Tuesday?
Who else is it going to be? I don't want him to start, but he's going to.
Yeah, I would love to see him start Stevenson. I'd love to see Stevenson get a start just to see what he could do, because I think because of his youth and his ability to run the channels would give us a different option against Bournemouth rather than just stagnant.
Oh, he's likely to be on the bench.
Yeah, I'd love to see him have a start. Why not? But start a strong team around him as well, though. Don't just sort of. I'd like to see a strong team start and give Stevenson an opportunity to see what he can do with some experienced players with him. We know what Chris Wood can do. Or he can't do. We know. Why not give Stevenson a chance?
It could well be on the bench.
But then Eddie might have to say, right, we've got to play him because he's on 100k a week.
I mean, we've got to remember we failed to break Bournemouth down the last time we played them, so we need to make sure we don't. That the coaching staff and the team will be making sure they don't mess this up again, because it was a disappointing result last time against them. So
could that physical presence be the difference though of having some?
That was more. My point was more that he will start better players around. I don't think he's going to... I think he'll play the strongest team he possibly can in that moment. I don't think he's going to mess around with like Fraser, potentially. I'd be disappointed if he does. If we get a start in a lineup with players like that in it, I'll be disappointed. I'll trust him because every time he picks an 11, we normally win, but I'll be disappointed. I want to see Joe Linton. I want to see Maxi. I want to see Miggy. I want to see the big hitters because we did fail to break them down in the league. And I don't want to mess up because a cup is a really good chance for us this season. So I want to see the big boys have got to play.
Yeah, that's Chris. You agree? Chris Wood to start?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I'd love to see Wilson run out, but it's probably going to be Chris Wood, and keep Wilson in for the Leicester game. But we'll see. I guess it'll be a shock to us to see who does line up in that cup game on Tuesday night.
I know, can't wait. Chris, are you still sticking with Wood to start Tuesday, Wilson to start Boxing Day?
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
I think they'll keep Callum Wilson to one side, make sure that he's fully right for the Boxing Day game, which is a massive game, which we've spoken about a few times. And I think Chris Wood starts on Tuesday. Love to see him get a goal. But yeah, I think Chris Wood starts Tuesday, and maybe the young lad Dylan Stevenson, maybe he'll come on, with like 15, 20 to go or something like that. But yeah, I think Callum Wilson's been put in bubble wrap until Boxing Day.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%. Great to have John Justice Allen in the house. Good evening to you as well, and of course Steve Rafe. How you doing, Steve? Yeah, Merry Christmas to you in advance. Hope you're well. I'm sure we'll be in touch as a channel very soon. And yeah, great to have you in the chat tonight. So just a couple of shout outs there. One question from Oliver B. Question, where is Ronaldo going? I don't really care. I don't think anyone else really cares where Ronaldo's going. He's not coming to Newcastle, so
Thank
therefore
God.
I'm not really bothered where he goes from this point on in. I'm just answering that question to make sure that we answered it. Anyone else got anything other to say?
Actually, yeah, just on Ronaldo, I don't really follow him on social media, but I hope he wishes Messi congratulations after winning the World Cup today. We'll see.
I think you'll probably find he'll do it in private.
Yeah.
That's the kind of, and to be fair, if it was the other way around, I think Messi would do the same. I think they actually speak more than they make out they do. But I think they do it very privately and not very much over social media. I think their picture together before the World Cup was very much staged because of the promotion, but nothing more. But I think you'll probably have sent him a little something separately. But regardless of that, I don't really care. We're all about Newcastle. He's not coming to Newcastle, so therefore I don't really care. But let's go on. Last question from me on our question section. It says, have they finished the training ground refurb? Any pictures out for it? Not seen any. It's a great question, Michael. I haven't seen anything saying that it's been confirmed. Lads, I don't know if you've seen anything else. It was meant to have been before or when they returned from Saudi Arabia that it was meant to have been done, but we've not seen anything from the club officially to say that it's been finished yet.
I mean, they likely would have showed it off with pictures, wouldn't they? Or unless they're holding on to it for a press release or something, who knows? Possibly.
And yeah, actually, this is game related, not one. It's a question from me. I don't know if you guys have seen, obviously in the build up to the Leicester game, Boxing Day. Last night, I'm not sure if I've seen anything today, but last night there was Instagram reels and pictures and videos of James Maddison playing golf and doing things in Dubai. I found that really strange considering they play on Boxing Day and considering he's not played any football for a long time. Do you think that with 7-8 days to go, maybe a bit longer before the Boxing Day game, do you think he's going to be involved?
He might never play for them again, Pete.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see if he does actually start that game on Boxing Day, or whether he has a niggle. Because if he has a niggle, then I think that gives us a probably a good understanding that he's not going to be playing for Leicester anymore. But time will tell. I mean, I don't see any. If he hasn't kicked the ball for so long, and then I don't think if he's still in Dubai and he's had a bit of time off, and I can't see him making the game.
I mean, we both went out at the quarterfinal stage. Brazil and England both went out at the same stage. and Bruno's come straight back and is pictured in training.
Yeah.
So whereas, when was he playing golf? Was this the last couple of days?
This was last night. So last night,
yeah,
oh,
last
okay.
night, of course,
late
yeah.
last
Yeah, that's
night.
very late then.
Late last night.
Considering he wasn't involved too much either, that's
no. Him and his partner were there was pictures of him on his Instagram, a video in fact of him taking a few swings out in Dubai, and he's been putting a load of stuff on Instagram over the last number of days in Dubai. So obviously when all the other players
played a game on the same day.
Yeah. So when all the other players have gone back to England, right after being knocked out, he stayed in Dubai with his partner, and they've been over there for a period of time. Now, for me, I'm just thinking, for me, if I was a player and I was a player that was back fit and ready to play, I'd be wanting to get back into Leicester because I've missed so much time to get back fit in order to play and be selected and be available for the Boxing Day game. Now, he could still go back Monday, Tuesday and have a few days of training, but I would expect, and I might be wrong in this, so you guys tell me if I'm wrong and people in the chat tell me if I'm wrong. I would expect if I was a player being sent off to England already injured, that as a Leicester medical team, I would want him back as soon as possible to assess him to see if he's ready to play. Now, there's a lot of Leicester fans that kicked off, certainly from my neck of the woods, obviously being in Leicester, about the fact that he didn't play any minutes. I was always convinced that he wasn't fully fit. And I know he trained in the week building up to the France game and all the rest of it, but there's training and there's actually being able to physically play and physically train. So in the England training clips, in the one-to-ones, in the group sessions, attack against defence, which they put out a lot of those and they were really, really good to watch, he was never involved in any of them. Callum Wilson was, a number of other players were, Trippier's and that. He was never involved in any of them. He was never involved in the hard training, which made me think he was never quite fit enough to play for England. Now, if he's not 100% fit, if I was a Leicester medical staff, I'd want him back to assess him to make sure that he's ready. I think though, we've got Monday tomorrow. Then we've got we've got bang on 7 days between then and Boxing Day. I don't think that's enough time for them to properly assess him, get enough training under his belt to make sure that he's ready to play at Newcastle. That's just my opinion. Am I wrong?
You're wrong, Pete. You're wrong. And I'll tell you why you're wrong, because I saw him at the darts and Ali Pally, and he was there. He was giving it loads, loving the darts. But
if anything, that shines a negative light on Southgate more than anything else, because that means Southgate's picking injured players that are likely to never get any minutes in the tournament anyway.
I think the whole James Maddison England thing was a PR stunt, and I will not be swayed on that at all. I don't think Southgate had any, I think the injury to Maddison when he went off the last Premier League game, I think that was a blessing for Gareth Southgate, because I don't think he had any plans on playing him anyway. I think it was a PR stunt.
Why didn't we just pick somebody else that might have been useful?
Because it's Gareth Southgate.
Sancho's fit. If Maddison's not fit enough to play any minutes,
Yeah, Jordan Team for Life's right. Leicester or Dubai, tough choice. I know which one I'd choose. I've already got my bags packed. I'm already ready to go over to Dubai and get being over here. But no, I just thought it was an interesting observation. Like I'd observed it and I saw him over a few days and thought, maybe he'll come back Friday, train a few days and be ready for the game. Then I saw him again Saturday. I've not checked today. I'll have a look to see if he's been active in Dubai. If he's been active again today, that means he's still there. And that then is throwing even more doubt of whether he's going to be available. Do you think he's going to want to play against Newcastle Boxing Day?
Do the club want him to play? Already in line?
All the I'm not saying the deal was done, but what I hope it is. But what I'd say is that I don't think Leicester are going to want they're not going to want the kind of media attention around Maddison and Newcastle in the Leicester game. And if Newcastle win that game, if we go there and destroy Leicester and get 3 points, that's going to reaffirm any thoughts that he might have in his mind that he wants to move on.
But then, Pete, you've just said, then Leicester won't want the furore around Maddison and Newcastle. If he wasn't going, It's not a thing, is it?
Ooh,
So does that make it a thing?
it's a great point. It's a great point.
Because if he wasn't going to go, it wouldn't be a thing, would it? He'd just play and there'd be no questions asked. But the fact that if that's the case, and they're like, oh, I don't want it all to be about Maddison and going to Newcastle. Same when Connor Cody asked him that question. And, it was all a bit in code. It was all a bit, tongue in cheek. He clearly didn't feel comfortable being asked the question.
Who asked him the question, sorry?
Connor Cody.
Oh, okay.
You did it on purpose to wind him up. It seems like it's been planned. It seems like it's been planned. So obviously we saw the pictures of like Callum Wilson and Maddison spending a lot of time together.
No, it's Cal. He calls him Cal, Popey, and Trips.
Cal, yeah.
They've got their
they're both on
nicknames.
commentary, so they know each other really well. They're really good friends.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I mean, because Billy talks about it quite a lot as well. He knows his stuff from being that neck of the woods. He spends a lot of time with Trippier, but interestingly, in that interview, he talked really positively about Nick Pope, about how nice of a guy he is, and how he spent quite a bit of time with him. Obviously,
A bit weird that he would be spending a bunch of time with the reserve goalkeeper if there was nothing in it.
He's on his way.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
I
that.
am.
I am. Go on then.
Come on.
It would be weird if he doesn't come at this point. There's been so many little clues. It would be unless we're so far gone, we're just looking for the clues now. Maybe, who knows?
Alex, just from my point to end, because I know we're going to start to wrap things up soon. The two biggest clues about it all is we've had 2 bids for him already.
Well, yeah, that helps. The fact that we've officially
bid in for players anyhow, and our ownership don't put bids in for players unless we want them. And we know from the likes of Sven Botman that we've got a bid. We wanted the guy. He wasn't ready at that point, so we went back in the summer. Who's to say that we didn't get the bids there for that player, but we don't go back in January? That's all. That always stays in my mind. The fact that we've only bidded for a player that we actually want. We've been linked with so many. We were linked with Renan Lodi for God knows how long in the beginning of the.
He's rotting on the Forest bench.
To the point where we were adamant that he was the next guy in the door. All of a sudden, we bid for Target, we sign him, it's done. We did the same with Isak. We did the same with Botman. I'm convinced that you don't put 2 bids in for a player like James Maddison unless you want the player, unless anyhow wants the player.
There's a curious thing with the price, though. There's a lot of people suggesting 60 odd million, which is bizarre when we were having 50 million bids turned down 6 months prior to that. It would be all the valuations seem to be not taking into account that 6 months of time has passed. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Is that bid now going to be accepted, or has it already been accepted? Is there an agreement in place where Maddison isn't going to play against Newcastle, and that's why he hasn't come back from the World Cup?
Time will tell.
And just
tune in to find out.
Look, I'm just going to add to that. On top of that, as well, we're not thinking about James Maddison here. Is he now saying, "Okay, maybe I'm ready for a move"?
Pete, when are you not thinking about James Maddison? That is the question.
But we haven't discussed it, though. For all the bids and everything, we haven't talked about the player. The player might come back from the World Cup and thinking, you know what? If I'm actually going to get into this England team, I need to play for a team that's fucking class. I need to go to Newcastle because they're fucking class. That's what I'm going to say.
Christmas dinner, Pete will be there. I wonder what James Maddison's doing now.
He'll come to me. He'll come to me because you know what? He's watching the show right now. James, sign the dotted line.
Old friend.
Spaghetti alphabet on toast is going to spell out James Maddison in the morning.
He wants to try my salmon and eggs for our 3-course meal Christmas Day. So I said, yeah, come and see the Christmas tree. Come and the family kids. No problem.
And you thought I was bad about Connor Cody, Alex? Would you listen to him?
I mean, at least James Maddison's good at football, so.
Oh, piss off.
On that note, I think we should bring the show to a close. Let's first of all, thanks Alex and thanks to Paul for joining us. We'll give a shout out to the sponsors and we'll let people know what is happening over the next little while because there's a few shows coming up unloaded. First of all, a shout out to Simon and shybarns.com. Simon in the chat as always, and go check out shybarns.com. for the latest available from Simon in terms of t-shirts and hoodies. Also the loaded collection, as you'll see, modeled by some of our fans here as well, Ray and Mick. So, and also check out the hoodies and hats and hats and hats. If you need a hat, you know where to go. Go to shyburns.com and that'll sort you out. Also, shout out to Pins and Prints and what is available from Pins and Prints. And also, shout out to Machine House. And Machine House and the range of t-shirts and hoodies. Get in there before the Christmas rush if you're looking for something there. And also, shout out to the Geordie Royce and the t-shirts that are available from the Geordie Royce. Check out the latest. And not forgetting our sponsor in the shape of the Radiator Shed, who has a fabulous prizes today in the shape of the TV and the 2 Google speakers. And congratulations again to our winners. And yeah, we'll be in touch, or you contact us even better, and we'll sort out delivery of those. And also with Paul's loving that. It's like you're back from the hockey days behind the bars. But go check out the Radiator Shed and the Install Works from Russ if you need any radiator or heating needs. Then what is coming up and loaded? Okay, good question. We've been asking ourselves that as well. So tomorrow we're actually filming our Christmas special. It's going to go out on Christmas Day. Are we going to tell anyone what it is yet? Or we keep it a secret? No. Okay. So that'll go on Christmas Day. So it's going to be a pre-record. Is it Wednesday, Pete, for away days?
Away days, yeah. We're back with Leicester Till I Die, previewing the Leicester game. It's the earliest we could do, really, and we didn't want to be too close to Christmas. So we are going to be live 7 o'clock. Different timing, just to make sure that Chris from Leicester Till I Die can make it. May have one another edition. Ash, that was on Battleground Europe from Leicester, may come and join us. I'm just waiting on confirmation with him, but should be a really good chat. And obviously, I'm sure there'll be plenty of other Maddison talk and other players as well, because they've obviously had players at the World Cup, and to see how they're looking and fixed, ready for the game at the King Power. So yeah, I'm looking forward to chatting to him and seeing what they're all saying in the build up to that game, because we're excited. I don't know about you guys.
Oh my God!
Oh my God! What is going on, man? Michael.
James Maddison will be joining Pete in the away days. So keep an eye out for that one.
Anybody with a 3D printer needs to 3D print a little mini James Maddison for the top of Pete's tree.
Top of the tree. Great idea, Alex. Speaking of Christmas, on Thursday we have a returning guest. We saw him last Christmas. We're going to see him again this Christmas. It's Christmas.
Cliff Richard.
Oh, Christmas at Kennedy, even better. Liam Kennedy comes back and joins us for another Christmas special. So looking forward to that. Catching up with Liam, hearing about his Saudi adventure as well as we've heard from Jordan there last week. But yeah, so catching up with Liam and his thoughts on the transfer market as well. So tune in for that one. Then on the 27th, play on the 26th, but on the 27th, we're going to go with a reaction show for the Leicester Newcastle game. And I think then coming up after that, we mentioned already, and we link in James Maddison again. He's linked in all our shows. He might even appear from anywhere. He could be anywhere, but we will be back with a fully loaded transfer show. So he may even appear in that. So I'm not 100% sure when that little show will land yet, but it is coming soon. But that's it for the shows, upcoming shows, guys. Again, thanks the lads for joining us, and that is it.
Lads, I've just got to say, with all the Wood and Maddison chat aside, like I said, I've been absolute mess. I've been ill in bed 4 or 5 days now. Not great at all. Wasn't sure if I was going to come on the show, but being on with you boys, I've really, really enjoyed it. It's really kind of lifted my spirits. Dropped my spirits shut slightly when I found out that Wood was on £100 a week, but there was clearly risen again afterwards. So, great to chat to you all, boys. Really, really love it as always. And thank you for making my day a lot better.
Pleasure, Matey.
Nice one, Pete. And I'm sure James Maddison will bring you in a limb sip in a little while. So back
I'm sure he will. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Take care. Good night.
Talk to you later. How'd you like that?
How you like